Everyone, there are lots of trees. We'll try and move a little bit forward once they're completely used to us and once the lioness is completely comfortable. Isn't that wonderful? There we go. All is right with the world on Sunday. What a rare joy. Well, not so rare these days, but you know. Hello Brian in Johannesburg, my old hometown, and Brian's hometown. You say you're watching Safari Live in 26 degrees in Johannesburg. That's a wonderful day in Johannesburg. And you say that you're having a braai. Now, to those of you who don't know what that means, a braai is a barbecue in South Africa. I'm just going to talk to Aubrey. Go ahead, Aubs. Oh, this is wonderful. Aubrey, go ahead. Just hear a little bit of the wind blowing in the trees there. It's a very perfect afternoon. Hello Hayley in England. You're wondering about when this lioness is going to introduce these little cubs to the pride. Hayley, it's normally at about 6 weeks. I think these things are about that age now. Well, maybe not quite there yet. They're probably about 4 or 5 weeks old, but it's not long before they're introduced to the pride. It'll be very soon, I think. I think, well, I'm just trying to think which ones these are. This must be the 3 that we found, the little tiny little ones that we had at Buffelshoek Dam just before Brian and I went on leave last. I'm sure that's this 3, or these 3, and therefore they must be almost 6 weeks now. Isn't that sweet? What I'm going to do is just depress the clutch and we'll sneak a little bit forward. Try and get that tree wisteria out of the way. One of them got a little bit of a fright. That's totally normal. They're very relaxed, so I'm not too worried. Or Mum's very relaxed, which means they will get relaxed too. Brian, tell me when you've got a decent view there. How's that? Okay, there we go, everyone. Now we won't move. Oof, can you smell that, Brian? I think Mummy's relieved herself somewhere close by. What an amazing sighting. This is the way to spend Sunday afternoon, everybody, after a substantial Sunday lunch. Little thing staring at us, and of course lions in the middle of the day, normally dreadfully boring things to look at, but of course these ones, because there are some little cubs, Mum is awake, the cubs are awake and having fun together. So I'm going with about 6 weeks old, I think these are, and they were moving with her yesterday, which means that they were probably, it means that, you know, that she has kind of probably introduced them to the pride already, although she's spending obviously some time on her own still. Let me just go a little bit forward, just because there's one playing with Mum's tail that's quite amusing. You see that one, Brian? Just because this, unfortunately, this that is the most irritating noise in the world. Okay, ready? Okay, there we are, everyone. This has been just brilliant. So tired after a heavy Sunday lunch of lion milk. Oh, now they're starting to make those lovely noises they make. Roger, you say you'd love to pick one up, but you assume that their little teeth and claws hurt. Yes, they do. Not quite as much as Mother's teeth and claws will hurt, where you should get out and try and pick one up. But yes, absolutely, they've got sharp teeth and claws. Mum's up. And off she goes. Please don't go with her. No, we can't get through there. That's very unkind of them to move down into the drainage line there. She's calling them. We will definitely try and follow them, everyone. This is just the best. They're running off there. And you hear their little ow, ow. Oh, this is too great. Wow, west of the cool sand there of the drainage line. Well, one of them's having a meal, the others aren't. Beautiful, just beautiful. Jean in Oklahoma, a very good question from you about what happens when Mum goes hunting. What does she do? Does she teach them to climb a tree, or hide them in bushes, or stash them, or what? No, she will normally stash them in a bush, Jean, and then they'll wait very patiently. When they get a bit older, they get a bit naughty, and they'll start to play, instead of doing exactly as they're told, which is to just lie still, like any sort of normal kid. They don't climb trees, though, not completely unlike the leopards. I'm not sure why it is that lion cubs don't climb trees, but they don't. And I suppose they probably, if they were desperate, they might be able to. But I've never seen a lion cub in a tree. Hello, Valeria. You said, do I have any names coming to mind for these little cubs? Not at this stage, no. I mean, there are 3 of them, and so I suppose we should name them after a famous 3, but we need to sex them, really, before we name them. And, of course, they'll lose their names as they get older, probably, because if they are males, they'll eventually leave the area. Mum being very patient, but clearly quite exhausted. Let me get the binoculars out. Brian, can you super zoom in on the one that's lying down with its backside facing us? We might be able to sex it. No, too late. She moved. He or she. So right from a very, very early age, they fight with each other for food. Kathy, you say they look so harmless and cute. How big are they in comparison with a domestic cat? They're probably about the size of a domestic cat now, Kathy. And yes, they probably are pretty harmless at this age. I think you could probably, you hear these places where people play with lions and they can go and, spend time with lion cubs. They'd probably be about this age, the lion cubs, and so you could probably safely play with them. But they don't stay like that for long. They are very playful. She's got a bit of an injury there on her shoulder. See that? Hello, old Yin in Edinburgh. Very nice to hear from you there. Of course, the world's most beautiful accent, probably from Edinburgh. Not that that's what it sounds like. Old Yin, you're interested in what I think of Leucistic lion breeding. So Leucistic lion, for those of you who don't know, is a lion that is, well, it's a white lion, basically. Very pale compared with normal. And you want to know what I think of breeding them in captivity. Just hold on 1 second, sorry. Afternoon, Orbs, Lioness and Cubs still static on Nyala Road North. My point of view on that is quite clear. I don't believe that it's a good idea. I don't believe that it has any conservation value. A leucistic lion is not. Sorry, the radio's going crazy in my ear. Yeah, Orbs, we did get that. Thanks very much. I haven't been there yet. So, I don't believe that there's any value in breeding lions like that in captivity. The genes for leucism, white lions, occur naturally in the wild. Sorry, I must just turn this radio off before I go ballistically crazy in my ear. So the genes for white lions exist all over in the wild, but they're only expressed rarely because they are recessive genes. And so to breed them in the wild in captivity is the same as this very odd propensity, especially in South Africa, to breed rare game. So black impala or golden gnu's, or all these strange recessive traits that do occur naturally in the wild from time to time. But because they're recessive and they're not particularly adaptively successful, they don't move into the population at large, and they don't express themselves in the population at large. So to breed leucistic lions or golden gnu's or black impala or any of these other rare and exotic species is of almost no conservation value whatsoever. And doubled with that, of course, the effect of having lions in captivity, really probably quite a bad idea. A lion is easy to keep when it's this age. As soon as it gets to mum's age, however, they're not tameable. They don't tame. You can't keep them in a... you can't really keep them as domestic animals, and they don't domesticate well. They are wild. They are potentially very dangerous when they're adults, especially if they are used to people and they're not afraid of people. And so I think that the captive breeding of any lion is, one hesitates to say always bad, but I think it's almost without exception a bad idea. So I hope that answers your question all the way from Edinburgh. Everyone, when I say the radio is going crazy in my ear, what I mean, everyone, for those of you perhaps new viewers, is that the game drives from the commercial lodges around here, like Djuma, Cheetah Plains and Arathusa, they're all starting to get moving now. because their guests go out a little bit after we do. They have their tea on the deck overlooking the water holes, which is a very civilized thing to do. And now they're just getting mobile, so their rangers call in on the radio to find out what's been going on. We are very, very lucky here, everyone. This is not something you do every single day. Brock, a very nice one from you. So you know, obviously, that the makeup of a lion pride is females and their youngsters. And you want to know if a female lion would ever leave a lion pride to set up another pride. The answer is most likely not, Brock. It's highly unlikely. The reason for that, of course, is that she finds safety within a pride like this. And the general state of affairs is that if any of these cubs are females, what they'll do is remain in this pride. There's no real reason for them to go off unless the pride gets very big. Now, in this kind of area, prides are normally sort of 5 females or so, plus their attendant offspring. But you can see very quickly that if, for example, these 5 females of the Nkuhuma pride, they've suddenly got 8 extra lions. Now, 4 of those are probably female, plus minus. Suddenly you've got a pride of 9 now. 2 of them still haven't given birth, so we could have a pride of 12 or 15 plus attendant offspring. So very quickly the pride could go from 5 to 20 or so. At that point, sort of 20 to 24, you'd find it might split. Now that's not going to be one lioness going off and forming her own pride. It'll be probably 2 groups of closely related females going off separately and creating their own prides, if that makes sense. Beautiful sighting this. We're very lucky to have this kind of view. I don't know if you were with us yesterday afternoon, but Brian and I spent quite a hairy moment or two trying to find the lions in a drainage line quite a long way from here. And eventually we managed to spot them, and it was just such a joy. We didn't get much of a view, and so it's perfect that we've now come here to spend a bit of time with them. Not so, Brian. It feels right, doesn't it?
It does indeed.
Yes. Don't turn over. Now, of course, they're going to want to go over the other side. It's going to make life a little difficult for us. See how Mum is panting there? Oh, it's too sweet. Look at this. Look at them. Monique, you're in London and you say this lioness eaten recently. No, I don't think she has. She doesn't look particularly full to me. In fact, she looks slightly the opposite. So no, I don't think she's fed for a little while. Certainly the cubs seem to be feeding. They were at, if I'm not mistaken, they were actually made it to the Djuma Dam Cam yesterday evening from where we saw them, but quite late on at night. I think Connor said around 3 a.m. And they came back this way, and I know that Jamie and Brent, 1 o'clock, and I think Jamie and Brent were looking for them this morning. They knew they were in here somewhere, but didn't find them. And then somebody on a late game drive this morning just drove past on the road, and she'd brought them out onto the road. And that's how we managed to find them. I'd love to say that Brian and I, with our superb tracking skills, got them in here, but that is not the case, is it, Brian?
No.
No, alas not.
Alas.
Sharon, you want to know how many nipples the lion has. She's got 4. 4 what we call inguinal mammae. Inguinal meaning sort of on the belly, as opposed to pectoral, which all the primates and the elephants have. And if they're pectoral, they're normally 2. Hyenas, interestingly, also only have 2, but they're at the back, like this, inguinal. But interestingly also, hyenas have smaller litters, and they also don't cross-suckle. So this lioness, when she rejoins the pride with these cubs, which will be very soon, I'm pretty sure, she will suckle the other cubs in the pride, and likewise these cubs will go across to some of the other lionesses and try and feed from them. One does have to sort of pinch oneself every so often just to make sure that you are actually awake. We're sitting here in the middle of the middle of the Sabi Sands, western fringes of the Kruger Park, Sunday afternoon, and there's a lioness there with 3 little 6-week or 5 or 6-week-old cubs just sort of being while we're here, which I think is remarkable. It's quite easy to get a bit blasé about this stuff. Hello, Gracie, aged just 8, soon, of course, to be 9, very soon, in fact. Gracie, you say, are they, they're so snuggly, but are they the size of a kitten, and how old are they? Gracie, they're 6 weeks old. They're not the size of a kitten. I know they look like that on the screen, but they're actually about the size of a pretty big house cat. So if you think of a cat at home, or any cat that you've met, these things are probably about that size. So they're much bigger than kittens, even though they look like kittens. I mean, you cannot believe the weather either. I mean, it's 30 degrees here, middle of winter. Possibly a slight Indian summer. I think we'll get another couple of cold snaps before the real spring sets in. Certainly Brian in Johannesburg, who mentioned of the fact that he's sitting having a braai at home now, which is a barbecue, as I explained, he will be well aware that Johannesburg especially will suffer no doubt will suffer a September cold snap. Alright, let's go back across to Jamie for a short update. I'm a bit confused by that leopard, so I hope that she will have some light to shed on a situation. Distance away, I am actually at the sighting with Brian Joubert and his thumb.
Oh, wait.
The tumbleweed thumb. There it is. A particular highlight of the Sunday sunset safari. Back to the lions. Now, I've taken a number of rank average photographs, but even I am able to get 1 or 2 in focus at this sighting. Normally, of course, their eyes are shut when I depress the shutter. Yes, they were sort of open there. Now, Rob, you're in New Jersey, and you want to know about the weaning and when they wean from their mum's milk. Rob, there's a nice way of remembering this with lions, and that, of course, is the number of the devil. That's not to say that there's anything devilish about lions, but 666. So 6 days before they open their eyes, 6 weeks before they join the pride, 6 months before they wean. So it's quite a nice way to remember it. Well, that's how I always remembered it. 6 days to eye-opening, 6 weeks to joining the pride, 6 months to weaning. This is incredible. Brian, one struggles to know where to look, you know. Mum is very, very happy there, and I think you'll find she's so very happy, of course, because that sand is cool. She's in the shade. Somebody asked if I thought she'd just, if she'd fed. I don't, she looks very comfortable, you know, and she's panting quite hard, so maybe she has. I might be wrong. I wonder if she didn't eat something last night. So that was Monique in London who asked that. So, Monique, I'm going to modify what I've said to you. I think she has eaten, given the panting. It's difficult to tell, you see, when they're lactating, because their bellies always look slightly full. That one, of course, is not panting at all. That is the picture of relaxed little lion. And as all of you are thinking how nice it would be to pick one of those up and give it a bit of a cuddle, which, of course, in principle is true, but in practice, really not a good idea. And I was chatting to somebody the other day, and, you know, a friend of mine in Johannesburg, and they were all excited because someone had brought lion cubs to the school where their kids are, and I was just scandalized. I couldn't believe that that sort of thing was going on in South Africa. It really has been shown to be a rather dreadful practice, because, like I say, they do grow up into that rather terrifying beast lying in between. And, yeah, they're not, you can't keep them in domestic confines when they become adult. That's very sweet, Brian. Look at the little claws. There's little things that will be like razor blades. So tired, but not tired enough to close the eyes yet. It's like a child fighting sleep. I was had another rather fascinating conversation with somebody about sleep the other day, which I shall get into now once we've answered Angie's question. Angie, you're in Ohio and you say, how's the cub with the injured paw? We haven't seen them for a while, Angie, so I'm not sure. It's not one of these three. It's one of the older three. And in case some of you don't know, one of those cubs of the other three, the oldest litter, I think, in this group, one of them has got a nasty injured, probably coccyx, Jamie reckons, so hip joint, and she or he looked to be limping quite badly, and that's not a good thing for a lion cub. If it doesn't heal, the pride will eventually leave the cub, and it will be left to fend for itself. So, Angie, I don't know. Now, as we watch this lion, the little cub sort of fighting off sleep, I had a wonderful sort of conversation with somebody the other day about how we as human beings, especially in the Western world, are so desperate to put our children to bed and try and, you know, regulate when they go to bed and that sort of thing. And quite interestingly, this person I was talking to was saying, well, you know, we don't ever do that. The child goes to bed when it wants to go to bed. And I think there might be a bit of a lesson. There might be a bit of a lesson for us from the lions. Of course, these lions sleep when they're tired, and they're awake when they like to be. It's probably, I wonder if it's slightly more exhausting for Mum. She also sleeps when she wants to, of course. And everything rather calm down now. This, of course, is what everybody should be doing on a Sunday afternoon, not so, Brian? Fast asleep.
A good old afternoon siesta.
A good old afternoon siesta. And there was a pearl-spotted owl calling behind us, and that has lulled our little cub fighting its sleep into dreamland. And out again. Look at that. Isn't that sweet? Kim, you're in Florida and you're wondering at what point in time we're going to be able to identify the gender of the cubs. Kim, the answer is right now, if we get them enough, if we get a good enough view of their backsides, we'll definitely see them. Station on Nyala Road North, come in. There's just somebody who's driven past us. Okay, Cobby, you probably got a view from that side, but you can try the side. I think it's going to be fascinating to see them get a giant Land Cruiser into where we are. Before they get here, I'm going to suggest we do a little bit of a move, just so that there's a bit of space when they come in here. I don't want to disturb them, but we're going to move just a little. Right, while I move, let's just pop across to Jamie and find out what's going on with the recalcitrant ting. We've just done a little bit of a move around, everybody. Nothing much has changed since you were last here, except Mum has moved around. I've also assessed that I think the chances of that Land Cruiser getting into where we are now is almost negligible. So I think we're going to be on our own with these little things for a while. What a pity, Brian. Isn't that sad?
It is.
It's so lonely here. Here comes the other one. What's thinking about coming out? So sweet. Hello, Isabella. You're just 5 years old and you're wondering about their tongues and how scratchy they are. They are definitely scratchy, Isabella. They're probably much scratchier than a house cat's tongue. And Mum's tongue, of course, is very, very scratchy. It's the scratchiest kind of a tongue. It would be like steel wool. I don't know if you know what steel wool is, but I'm sure you've probably got some in the kitchen at home. And it's the kind of thing you use to clean a pot with. And that's what Mum's tongue will feel like. And these little ones probably feel quite a lot like house cats, maybe a little bit rougher than house cats. Remember, they don't want to have their tongues don't want to be too rough at this stage. And a lovely question from someone with the rather bizarre moniker of Blobbit MacBlob. Blobbit MacBlob, thank you for joining us this afternoon, wherever you happen to be blobbing about the place. You say, it really is very special, some of the names that people come up with. Blobbit, you wouldn't have the Cubs, something about the Cubs' blue eyes. I'm afraid I failed to hear the question once I heard your name. But yes, the Cubs do have blue eyes, and they start out blue, and then, well, they're bluish brown, and then they go to the sort of normal greeny lion colour. You can see there is definitely a tinge of blue. Not as blue as leopard cubs' eyes often start out at. Now, Hosana and Shongile, they certainly started out with the brown eyes already, but often leopards will start off with blue eyes. And these chaps have got relatively blue eyes. Would you say they're blue, Brian? More grey?
More bluey grey.
They're not very blue, though, are they? So Blobbit McBlob, a little bit of blue there, some grey. Difficult to tell, of course, because all of our screens are calibrated differently. But from where I'm sitting, they look pretty grey. Not exactly the colour of the sky. Look at that little thing. Kathy, It's a lovely question. I've never thought about this before. You say, what do I think these cubs smell like? Well, I hope they don't smell like their mother, because their mother, it will be a bit niffy. But they are quite fastidious cleaners, and they will be cleaned by their mother all the time. I think you'd find they probably don't smell dissimilar from a house cat, I imagine. It may be a bit niffier, a bit dirtier than that, but yeah, not bad. I certainly can't smell them from where I'm sitting now. And, that's one of the things, of course, I think it's one of the major reasons that cats clean themselves. I don't think it's because they necessarily want to be clean. I think it's because that way back in evolutionary past, and, well, in the case of lions now, they want to be scentless so that their animals, the prey species, don't pick them up on the wind. And I think that's why they're such fastidious cleaners, and why the stalking predators like leopard and lion are much more fastidious cleaners than, say, the coursing predators like wild dogs or hyenas. You might just be able to hear a little bit of the wind rustling in the leaves. It's a hot northwester today. And as I was saying yesterday, you would, in a normal year of rain, be worried about fires in weather like this. Hot, dry, windy. No grass at the moment, so we don't have to worry about fires, which is something of a relief. Wouldn't you say, Brian?
It is.
Because escaping from here in the middle of a bushfire would be, well, something of a trial. Well, this is a nice one from James Bear, because it's not that easy to answer, and it has many varied sort of permutations. You said, what age do they start exerting dominance over each other? James, they don't really. Well, they do and they don't. The females probably won't. They won't exert, there's no real hierarchy, except at a kill site where the biggest and most aggressive will feed first, because she's prepared to have a fight. But there will be, if these are all females, you'll find that they probably have got almost exactly the same sort of dominance slash ranking. If they're male, eventually when they get into a position where they're in a coalition, I think it will depend quite strongly. I think it will depend quite strongly on how much testosterone they have, and that testosterone will be defined probably genetically. So if we look at the sorry, the radio's going again in my ear. If we look at the Birmingham boys, it's quite interesting to watch. They had a big fight the other day that Jamie watched, and I think she interpreted it exactly correctly. Amber eyes coming into estrus, and they were fighting over mating. It was very clear there that there was a battle for dominance. But when they're in a coalition and trying to take over a territory, it really is very unclear as to whether there is a dominance hierarchy or not. Sometimes there isn't. In the case of the Matimba males, I think it was quite clear that Hairy Belly was bigger, and he had a darker mane, so he had more testosterone, so he was probably more dominant. It's only once they're adults, though. It's completely unlike it is with dogs. So in a dog pack, from the time they open their eyes, they start to develop a ranking within the litter. You can see that with wild dogs, you can see it with domestic dogs, and I'm pretty sure you can probably see exactly how it is with wolves as well. So it's very different for the cats. I'm just going to call in again here on the radio, everyone. People are starting to come close by here. Sorry, no, I'm not going to. There's much talking on the radio still. Fortunately, everybody, Aubrey did find she went south again into Little Gowrie, so we won't see her tonight. Hello, Jenny, you're in Cape Town. That's very nice. You say, why have they got these spots on their heads? Well, the reason they've got spots on their heads is the same reason that a leopard has got spots. Remember that when she leaves them, she will leave them in an area like, for example, if Brian pans to the left there, there's a thicket. Now look at the light in that thicket. If you zoom into that thicket there, Brian, if you don't mind, just behind her tail there. That's it. That's the kind of area where they'll stay. Now, that spotted top of the head and spotted body and sort of black mantle on the back will really disguise them nicely in a position like that. When they get older, they get too big to hide from animals. And so they have this tawny color which helps them in the winter, and it helps them at night to stay kind of semi-camouflaged. But they're too big to actually hide and stalk through the thickets like a leopard would, and they don't have that hunting strategy. So it's only while the little ones need to remain hidden from other predators that they have those spots, and then they lose them once they get a bit bigger. And another fairly silent afternoon, you know, not much in the way of bird calls. Yesterday, almost completely silent right until the end of the drive. Very tired. So just have a listen, and you might just be able to hear the call of the white-browed scrub robin going. That's all. Very quiet. That's it, turnover. Yes, high action here, everybody. Oh, camera. Oh. Don't move. That's it. That's it. Well done. I think I got one, Brian. Yes. Astounding. I think she's probably looking at vultures, everyone. I'm just looking above us. She is looking at vultures. They are so high up. Probably about, I would say almost a kilometre up. Flying off to the east towards Mozambique. Do you think they're going on holiday, Brian?
Probably.
They're probably going to the beach, aren't they? Supping on some Mozambican prawns this evening and a Dodge in. Very nice. Gerda, a very valid question from you. You say when the pride, she introduces them to the pride and eventually to the males, how do they know if they belong? Or how do the males know that these are theirs? Well, they know because no other males are allowed in this area. I'm not convinced they always know who of the coalition is the father or not, but I think also, as with just about all these cats, I'm fairly convinced that recognition is largely a smell thing. I think that they smell familiar, they smell like home, in the same way that your mother smelt like home to you, or possibly still does, and in the same way that your children, any of you who have children, smell like home to you. And there's a familiarity, you know, it's the same as, you know, I don't have kids, but I have nephews, and those nephews smell familiar to me, because they come from very similar genetics, of course. And I think that it's the same for the animals out here with their far more sensitive noses and ability to pick up pheromones in different scents. The other thing I would like you all to take note of and be grateful for in the same way that I am, is that there's no one else with us. We're on our own here. We don't normally get to spend this amount of time with brand new lion cubs. Normally we'll have to move out, but nobody else seems to want to come here except that fellow who was in his big Land Cruiser. I suspect he's probably lodged himself on a fairly large log not too far from here, and we'll probably spend the best part of the next 6 weeks trying to get off it. Not so, Brian? Hello, Tammy. You want to know about... sorry, the radio again. You want to know about whether or not, or how many cubs have been born in this area, and... Sorry, Kirsten, I've lost the other one. One sec, Tammy. It's coming again. And is there a specific time of the year? So the first question is, with this particular pride, 8 cubs. The Styx pride has another 8, but I'm not sure, they've come on to Djuma, I think once or twice with those cubs. They're currently on Cheetah Plains. There is no specific time of the year, but the reason it perhaps looks like there is a time of year, of course, is that these are the first litters of the Birmingham boys. This is their first time to mate. It's the first time that they've produced offspring. So it's not surprising that the females of both the Styx pride and the Nkuhuma pride, which are dominated by the Birmingham boys, it's not surprising that they're all giving birth at the same time. If the Birmingham boy takeover had happened 3 months after it happened in sort of July last year. If it had happened a year later or 3 months after that, you'd find that these cubs would be 3 months further along. So they're not seasonal breeders, but because of the way the Birmingham boys took over the area, and because of the way lion dynamics work, and all lion takeovers happen in that way, you'll find that the first litters from a new coalition will be relatively at the same time, and then it'll kind of spread out after that. And that works for the lions because it means that they can cross-suckle. It means they can look after each other's cubs. She's definitely eaten. Monique, look at her belly now. Orbs, go for it. I think your best approach is going to be on Nyala Road North. You should get a view from there. I've just managed to get this small vehicle in from the other side, but I think you're going to struggle to get a big vehicle in here. So try from Nyala Road North first, and then if you don't get a view, I'll try and guide you around from Goripan. Aubrey's going to come and have a look. Now, I just want to, while Brian is showing you that one, I just want to look at this female and just see. No, I thought for a minute that one nipple wasn't working, but it isn't that at all. It's just that her belly is so full of meat that it's at an odd angle. Yeah, Monique, she had a big meal last night. Deb in Connecticut, a nice one from you also, because it's not an obvious answer or an answer that has one answer. You say, will she hunt on her own, or will she join the pride to hunt? She'll do both. She will do absolutely both. Ooh. So I suspect that she probably hunted on her own last night. We didn't see any evidence of the rest of the pride today, so I suspect that she probably hunted on her own, and she will be very successful hunting on her own. Lions can survive well on their own, and we think the reason they live in prides is far more for the protection of youngsters than it is for their ability to hunt. A lioness on her own, very capable of hunting for herself. And indeed, I mean, in some research shows that lionesses on their own actually eat more when they're on their own than in prides. But their cubs obviously have a substantially less or smaller chance of surviving. She's just scratching there. I don't know if you noticed as she rolled over, she's very clearly got a bit of a skin infection, and she's giving it a bit of a scratch, which of course she shouldn't be. All right, let's go across to Jamie, find out what the update is there. I'm not sure what's happening with Tinganana. Very recalcitrant he's been this afternoon. Fascinating to see what he's been doing. And they ain't so sleepy right now, everybody. They're deciding to get up and do something useful with their lives, which is always nice to see. You know, it's nice to see the youth being useful, don't you think, Brian?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
It's wonderful.
It's important.
It is.
You don't want them lurking about.
No.
No. Very sweet. Oh, good one from you, James Richard. You're wondering about the suckle marks and how long it will take for those suckle marks to disappear once she stops suckling, I think you'll probably find it'll take about a month. They're quite severe. I mean, those marks are quite severe, and although it will be very clear that she isn't suckling, if you look at them after, say, a month, you will definitely be able to see still that she has been a mother from the discoloration of the fur normally. There we go. Oh, that's going to be a nice picture, even for me. This is fantastic. I'm just going to have to get on the radio, everyone. KT1 Lioness with Cubs on Nyala Road North. 3 stations here, but I'll move out if you want to come.
Right, thank you.
At the moment, visual probably only for 1 vehicle, maybe 2. This is just brilliant, everyone. Look at them playing there. This is fantastic. Go ahead, Duncan.
We're going to try and come in from that Gowrie Pan loop. That's probably the best access from the eastern side.
Duncan, it probably is. We did come in from Central, but that was a long way around. We had to come through the drainage. I misread where that was. So I'd say Gowrie Pan, definitely your best route, yeah. So I'm just trying to help him get in here, everybody. I think if he does manage to get here, we'll have to move out, but for the meantime, we can stay right where we are. Because, of course, well, there's no one else pressuring us to leave. So just to confirm, for those of you who are perhaps new, the idea with a view like this is that you would only be able to move maybe 2 or 3 vehicles into the sighting. 3 is the absolute limit. Often with Cubs it's just 2. So in this case, if somebody else comes to where we are now, we'll have to move out, I'm afraid. But that's okay, we've had an incredible view. William, you're a new viewer. Welcome and thank you for sending us a question. You say if a cub isn't accepted into a new pride, will a mother stay with them and sort of, I don't know, will they forge a route on their own? William, it's highly unlikely that a cub would ever be rejected from a pride. I don't think that that's happened, or I mean, I'm sure it's happened once or twice, but it's not very likely. In fact, it's highly unlikely that that would happen. So, I mean, the basic answer is no. If a lion is rejected, or then it will normally die. The mother can't afford to sacrifice herself, because if a mother sacrifices herself, it means the cub will die anyway. So, you know, she's taking a risk if she leaves the pride to look after a cub, and she wouldn't do that. This isn't a bad sighting, is it, Brian? Most enjoyable indeed. I'm just a little bit irritated with Tingana that he's managed to give poor old Jamie the slip. Clearly something up with him. It's just unbelievable. I mean, the photo opportunities here. I'm sure many of you are taking beautiful screenshots of the amazing compositions Brian is achieving. I'm certainly taking lots and lots of rank average photographs.
These some good ones of the scenery.
Yes, I've got some good ones of the scenery. You're good. Well, I was the world's greatest landscape photographer, of course. Rita, yes, you're in Johannesburg, and you say, it's a good question. You say, if the pride splits like we discussed earlier, would they recognize each other? And would they then would they fight? They would recognize each other, and often it's kind of what they call them is like a breakaway. So they'd call this, say, the Nkuhuma breakaway pride. If this pride split, they can join up again, especially if their numbers start to dwindle, but they wouldn't be as territorially aggressive with each other as unrelated prides would be. Good question, very astute. And now everyone's tired again. Hello, Denny. A nice one from you about limiting vehicles. Why we limit vehicles at sightings. Denny, because it's just, we don't want to put pressure on them, on the animals. So if you've got, for example, a static sighting like this, animals not moving around, it would probably not be bad if you had 6 or 7 vehicles in here, as long as they weren't moving. But as soon as the vehicles start moving around, of course, you have a situation where the animals can't hear what's going on. They feel nervous. They find it difficult to hear if the potential predator's coming up. And then from the other end of the scale, if you're a guest in a place like this, especially in the Sabi Sand, where it sort of prides itself on the exclusivity of the sightings compared with, say, some East African areas, well, then it's a really good idea that you only have 3 vehicles in the sighting, because it just makes it that much more private, that much more exclusive, and that much more intimate. So 2 reasons, for the animals and for the people. And there you can see them looking. They've turned around to look at Aubrey, who's trying to get into the sighting. Well, Cameron, you're 6 years old in Ohio, and I'm sure you were 5 at one stage. In fact, you must have been, but I think that you were 5 the last time I spoke to you. So if you have just had a birthday, I hope it was a good one. Cameron, very good question. You say, do they sometimes get hurt when they play with each other, like kids do? They do, you know, and we're not really sure how that one that we were speaking about earlier, there's a little cub in the other litter, and she's very badly injured. We're not really sure why, but it could have been from playing, but most likely it was from fighting. Maybe one of the males hit it, or maybe one of the females hit it, or she got caught in a fight when they were feeding on a buffalo. So sometimes they get injured, but they don't get injured badly playing. But the adults, you see how much bigger the adults are, and they're often not that friendly to the little cubs, especially if there's food. She was stuck there on that Sisyphus bush. Look at the light starting to soften. You can see it changing angles now and just touching the sand here. We have been so lucky to have this to ourselves. I've got to tell you, everyone, this is very rare. The chap who was trying to get into the sighting is still trying to get in here. I don't know what it is about a lion cub, but you can look at its face, especially if it's yawning and messing around like these are, forever and ever. Especially if they start making those noises. Hello, Timo. Timo, we were talking about the cuteness of lions and whether you could pick them up, and you want to know about their teeth and when they get their first set. Well, they're born with their first set, Timo. Well, almost. After a few weeks they'll have, just like a puppy, after a few weeks they will have a full set of teeth, and they have 2 sets of teeth in their life, Timo. Like most cats or most mammals, they have milk teeth and they have their permanent teeth. Isn't that fantastic? It's just a great big carpet of lions, little baby lions. There will now be great squealing in the final control from Geraldine Cheesecake Kent, who is unable to look at lions without squealing. I understand what she means. I've had to control myself. Right, we're going to sit here for a little bit longer, try and get those other people into the sighting. Jamie has got an owl.
Yeah, no, we couldn't find how you got in there. So we'll just wait for you.
Sorry about that. I think probably best for that vast vehicle of yours. I'm not sure you would have got it in here. Everybody, welcome back to the lion sighting, where the cubs are now doing what they've been doing for much of the afternoon, having a bit of a suckle. Very exciting. 1 or 2 other people have tried to get in here, failed, so we'll just stay here.
Jamie, what's your position?
This is just very delightful. I've said that about 786 times today. It's difficult to know what else to say. Hello, Hannah. You're just 9 years old and you're in Johannesburg. We're starting to hear quite a lot from you of late. That's great stuff, Hannah. You want to know about what it is when an adult lion is known as, or when a baby lion is known as an adult lion. Hannah, only when they're about 2 years old. So up until then, they're considered what we call juveniles, and I suppose they'd stop being called cubs after about a year. Then they'd be youngsters or juveniles, and then when about 2.5 years, you'd consider them adult. You'd still consider that's because they could have their own babies when they're 2.5 years old. The males, though, I guess because they are, well, they take a bit longer, just like boys take a bit longer to grow up. So the male lions also take a little bit longer to grow up. And you would probably not consider a 2.5-year-old male an adult, maybe when he's about 3 or 3.5. But a 2.5-year-old female lion is very much like, say, a 15-year-old female human being. And that's, of course, in history, that would have been considered an adult. It's not an adult now. It's still, thankfully, you're still a kid if you're 15 years old. And then I guess a male lion of about 4.5 years old would be like an 18-year-old male human being. Does that make sense? Everyone else around the sighting's having to move around so that they can see it from the other side. Brian, I'm starting to think we were extremely clever to get in here. Don't you think we were?
I do.
Very, very clever of us. She's got an issue with her foot there. She keeps licking it. She's also got that little injury on her shoulder. And I wonder if there isn't some... Maybe she got injured hunting last night or something like that. Now let's just try and pick out, I mean, it would be nice, it's almost impossible to identify these cubs one from the other at the moment, and yet two of them seem to be substantially hungrier than the others. Is that perhaps because one of them is? Maybe there is a sort of dominance hierarchy. There shouldn't be, or there isn't sort of a textbook dominance hierarchy, but maybe there's a little bit of a one. Cubs everywhere you look. Oh, sneezy. Oh, look. Oh, isn't that sweet? That's what we want. There we go. With Mum. And on top of Mum. Now that's that little... Remember I mentioned where I thought she had a bit of a skin problem? And I think that's there you can see that kind of... Looks like the same kind of skin trouble that one Birmingham male had. But seems to be fine. I'm sure it'll probably spread a little bit like that male's did, but then that male's skin disease did go away. Ah, there we are. And the one is tempted to say, well, you know, while the plebeians struggle to get a view of our wonderful sighting, we sit here like Lord Brian Muck and Lord Jim Muck, perfectly perched, alone, viewing our lions. Ah, now Jessie, you perhaps a cat owner yourself. You say, do lions have scratching posts like domestic cats do? They do, actually. I'm not sure it's to keep their claws short so much as to keep them sharp. And they've got trees. They use trees all the time, and we found one. In fact, I found two on the last 2 walks I did. I think both with Brian, we found where lions had been scratching on a tree, and you can definitely see where those razor-like, sharp, long claws have torn the bark off. They do that a lot. If you see them just getting moving, they will often leap up into a tree and scratch away at the bark. Oh, look at that. So very difficult, of course, to try and identify the difference between these two. You can do it if you see the whisker marks there. If you are able to take a picture and count them, then you can tell them one from the other. But of course, if you're just looking at them like we're looking at them, it's almost impossible. Now Lillian, this is an astute question you've asked, because you haven't asked why it is that she isn't attacking us. You've asked why she is not afraid of us. You're a new viewer. It's lovely to have you with us. Please try and tell us where you're from next time you ask a question. It's always so nice to know. And sorry, the radio again has gone crazy in my ear. Let me just gather my thoughts, Lillian. Lillian, you say, why is she not afraid of the human presence? It's because she doesn't, I don't want to say she doesn't know that we're human, but she doesn't perceive us as a threat. We're not on foot. If we got out of the car, Lillian, she would almost certainly go from what she is now, relaxed and lying in the cool sand, to viciously terrifying. because she's got cubs here, she wouldn't be able to move away. She'd feel cornered and she'd almost certainly charge. Because we're in a vehicle and we don't exactly know why it is that lions don't, and all the animals don't react to us in the same way in the vehicle. They've got good eyes, they've got good noses, they certainly smell human being when they're around cars, but they don't perceive us in the same way. They don't perceive us as a threat in the vehicles. And it's very, very interesting because, as a friend of mine said to me once, he said, you know, a lion or a leopard is able to spot a monkey by its ear. You know, at sort of 200 meters, it'll see a monkey's ear behind a tree. You can't tell me that when they look at our faces, they don't know that we're human beings or don't recognize us for human beings. But because we're not bipedal, we're in these big vehicles, they don't associate us with a threat. And I think that's why she's not afraid of us. You can hear some elephants shouting, possibly at Buffelshoek Dam, which is not far from here. Michael, you're interested in those spots again, and they are very interesting. You say, when will they disappear? Michael, they'll start to fade round about now, those obvious spots. They'll start to fade as they start to move with the pride, and by about a year old, they'll be gone. But like you say, some of them do retain them, especially on the underside of the legs. Now, Brian, if you don't mind, if you just tilt up a little, you'll see the lioness's back leg there still retains some of that spotting. So some of them retain it into adulthood, some have almost no spots in adulthood, but the ones on the head will almost certainly disappear by the time they're a year old, maybe even before. I think that one's fallen asleep on the boob, as it were. It's quite interesting. I've just heard on the radio Aubrey saying that there are a lot of vultures not too far from here. And I wonder if she didn't kill something there. Or there might be the rest of the pride there. That would be fascinating. He's going to go and have a look on foot, Aubrey. I was reading a tragic story today about a kid who committed suicide, unfortunately, because of bullying at school. And Debbie, it's obviously a very serious problem amongst all mammal species. You say, will these cubs experience bullying from the older cubs in the pride? Absolutely they will, completely. And sometimes, you know, if there are, say there are 8 or 9 bigger cubs within a pride, when much younger cubs join the pride, say they're 3 or 4 months younger, sometimes they can be outcompeted completely and they'll die. So yes, bullying absolutely takes place. It seems to be a fairly universal mammal trait, actually. It happens in the elephants, except in the elephants the mothers don't tolerate it. They will bash any of the bulls who try and bully the other ones, but it definitely happens, and especially amongst male cubs and male mammals generally, as they try and exert some form of sort of testosterone-fueled dominance. There often is this kind of a bullying situation. It's an unattractive trait of mammals. There, Brian, that's a female there. Go down a little, that's it. So we've got one female at least. The other one, can't really tell there. Hang on a second there. Let's have a look. You can get closer with the camera there, Brian. Is that as close in there as you can get? Please excuse this shot, everyone. I think that's a female as well. I think that's 2 girls. What do you think, Brian? That's definitely a female. Yeah, I'm not so sure either. Yeah, in fact, no, hang on. That's the bottom there that we can see. So that's a male. That's definitely the beginnings of his scrotum. So that's a male. So we've got one male, one female. Brilliant stuff. The other one, I'm not so sure, obviously. Can't tell from the face. You know, Gene, in North Carolina, you've made a particularly good observation, and one that I have failed to pick up. You say all these cubs have got black noses and not pink noses. Gene, they will get pink noses, almost certainly. I mean, if you see them, if you look at the mother's nose, for example, it's pink. She's quite a young one, I think. That tells, no, well, youngish. It tells me that she's probably about 3 years old, 3.5 years old or so. And lions, normally by the time they're 6, their noses are completely black. But yeah, these ones seem to have been born with black noses. I'm just slightly distressed, Gene, that I have obviously never noticed that before. It's bizarre. Let me just quickly check my camera here. Yes, they most certainly are black noses, aren't they? Huh. Black noses indeed, Gene. Now, everybody, we're going to sit here for a little bit longer, but while we wait and see what transpires at this unbelievable sighting, Jamie is with another mother, the Great Queen. Enjoy. Brian, say goodbye.
Bye.
We're being facetious, everybody. We can sit here for a few more minutes, and then we'll... Sometimes I find myself so amusing, Brian. Yes. We can sit here for a few more minutes. We just don't want to be after dark, everyone. And the sun's just dipped below the western horizon there. It will still be up in some parts, but because we're down here in the drainage line, it's going to be quite difficult to get out of here. Ah, it's interesting. Okay, this is quite interesting. So, I'm just listening to the radio. Aubrey has said that he did find a kudu that had been finished by lions not too far from here. I've no doubt that I doubt she ate it on her own, but she was probably with the pride. So Monique in London, you know that you asked whether she was eating or not. I think she probably helped to finish that kudu, and we had another question about whether or not she'll hunt with the pride at the moment, and the answer is yes, absolutely, sometimes. And clearly last night, I suspect if it was a kudu, I think it's probably highly likely that that kudu was killed by the pride. That is just too spectacular for words. I will have to take another photograph, even though I've taken 786 photographs today, most of which are completely unusable. I'll take another one. Hello, Fiona. You say, do I think that lions dream? I do, Fiona. I've seen them, you know, like when dogs dream and they chase things in their dreams, and some of them, we had a little dog called Trubshort at one stage, God rest his soul, who used to go, yip, 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 in his dreams. And I think I've never heard a lion sort of growling in their sleep, but I've certainly seen them shaking a little, and a little bit of growling or sort of movement that indicates to me that yes, they do in fact dream. What they dream about, Brian, I couldn't tell you. Meat, probably, most of the time.
Meat and running.
Meat and running. And sleeping. They may even dream of sleeping. They do so much sleeping, they probably dream about sleeping. Okay, everybody, it's getting a little bit dark now, and so I think because we're going to have to make quite a lot of noise to get out of here, I think we're going to have to call this quits. Thank you for joining us at the Lions. It's been okay, hasn't it, Brian? It's been quite nice, yes. Yeah, very good. Okay, we'll get out of here. We're, of course, being completely sarcastic. It's been an unbelievably wonderful afternoon here with these little lions. We'll make our way out to Buffelshoek Dam, and we'll probably catch up with you there. So until then, see you then.